They had this whole crop of black-eyed peas, cowpeas, right? And they're like, oh, we don't grow them for eating. We grow them for the wasps. And I was like, what? Why do you grow them for the wasps? Why?
This is Serious Grower Podcast. I'm Anna. I'm an entomologist. I'm a scientist, and I am using this podcast to talk to all sorts of growers and eaters who are serious about their farms, their gardens, their food systems, and I am asking, how can science help? Today's co-host is Casey. She's an experienced market farmer growing in Northern California and now in the Bitterroot Valley out in western Montana. Her family is transitioning into what we call non-commercial farming. She's a homesteader now, so she's serious about creating a great experience for her family and for feeding her family. You'll be hearing plenty from her. Her experience brings so many unique perspectives, and because she's my best friend.
Okay, so this podcast, are we going to be like Bert and Ernie? It's going to be us chit-chatting like Bert and Ernie.
I think that's why most people do podcasts, is like to get their friends to hang out with them.
I know, I like that.
Do you remember how I told you that like I was telling my coworkers like, oh, like my friend's coming? Like when I lived in DC, I was like, my friend's coming. Yeah. And I said, yeah, we have a real Ernie and Bert thing. And they were like shocked to find out that I was the Bert. Right? Like they couldn't imagine somebody who would be more Ernie than they saw me in their mind. I got really mixed up because like I kept on saying Ernie and Bert, and people were like, no, it's Bert and Ernie.
It is Bert and Ernie.
Here's what I have envisioned. Eventually, I think the conversations that you and I have on a regular basis will be sliced and diced. But everything is kind of like chit chat, like blah, blah, blah. And then like, oh, you know what? Like, I wonder, da, da, da. And I'll be like, I'll look into it. And then like, it'll be like a time skip. And I'll either have like an interview with somebody who can speak to it better than I can, or I'll share a resource. And then every episode will end up with like the co-host being like, yeah, that's good, but I think I'm going to do something different, or I'm going to use it, or, you know, like whatever your conclusions are. The overarching thing is like, what does science contribute to this? And at the end of the day, like, does it matter? Will you use that information or not? Or like, what are you going to do?
Cool. Well, I can do chit chat. And I do get excited by some of these questions sometimes.
What are some things that are standing out for you?
Well, one thing I was just thinking about was, and I've never heard of this before, but I went to our Western Agriculture Research Center field day this year. They had this whole crop of black-eyed peas, cowpeas, right? The same thing. Yeah. Anyway, and they're like, oh, we don't grow them for eating. We grow them for the wasps. And I was like, what? Why do you grow them for the wasps? Why? And then by the time we saw that was over. Then we were on to like looking at small fruits.
Sure. I can find out.
I'll look into it.
Like I told you before, like the reason I was looking into like, oh, like I didn't even realize that the research station on the street was like a horticultural research station. I thought that was really cool. So like I went to their website to figure out if there was anybody doing research on this, and I couldn't find anything. But do you want to look at pictures of bugs right now?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because like what I was going to do is say, first of all, all right, so I'm showing you a bunch of wasps right now. Mm-hmm. So this is the family of wasps that most people think of when they think of wasp, which is family Vespidae. What you need to know about like when an entomologist says wasp, they're talking about the whole order Hymenoptera, right? Hymenoptera. So like that's not a great word. Hymen actually means joined, and optera means wings. So like they're named after the fact that they have two sets of wings that are like hooked together. It's not very descriptive, but this group is divided up into a couple different groups. One is the aculeata. You see aculeata, that's the ants, bees, and stinging wasps. Aculeata, that's ants, bees, and stinging wasps. So honeybees, like you know that like the sac, like the venom sac that comes out when you get stung, that's like their whole reproductive system. So honeybees have evolved so that, like, they do not have active ovaries, they do not have ovipositors. It's all been turned into, over evolutionary time, a stinger that comes out and like pumps that nasty sac of poison into you. Right. So wasps, they still have the ability to lay eggs, but they have a defensive stinger that's in place of their ovipositor. Vespids, and you'll probably start noticing this now, are kind of broken into different groups. So you have your pollen wasps, which obviously eat pollen, potter and mason wasps, paper wasps. Those are the ones that make those really cool nests. And then like hornets and yellow jackets. So you know how we were talking about wasp traps? Like sometimes they have yeasty stuff. Sometimes they have fruit. Sometimes they have like a little bit of meat. Like I was looking at different
sandwich
traps.
meat, right?
Sandwich meats. Because like somebody was like, have you ever seen these things where like you cut a soda bottle off on half and you turn it around and you put like yeast and sugar and they all get trapped and like you can just throw the whole thing away? That's actually a really effective way to trap these kinds. But somebody goes, I just throw a big piece of bologna in mine and it works great. So anytime you have something where like one thing works for another person and one doesn't, it's probably because you're dealing with like really not even closely related things. So I don't know if you can see in that picture, but like their wings are folded in half. No,
yes, I do.
So vespids, like all vespids have their wings folded in half. And like that will be a standout compared to other bees and larger scale wasps. Let me see if I can show you a comparison. Let's look at some bees. Yeah. So look at this. Is like, look at that. Like it's all spread out. It's not going to be folded in half. Where parasitica, let me see if I can show you some of these guys. Or actually, no, I'm going to show you the most famous parasitica, which is trichogramma. Have you ever heard of trichogramma?
I don't know.
So look at how cute this guy is. You can actually buy these. So this right here, I believe this is like a European corn borer egg. So like think about how tiny that is. And like this teeny tiny parasitic wasp. That's one of the smaller ones for sure. It's hard to, like see like how small these are.
Yeah. Wow. It says, okay, one of them here, 1/50th of an inch.
Yeah. So here's a dime.
Oh.
Can you see that dime?
Yeah, those are tiny.
Yeah, look how tiny they are. So a lot of the little parasitic wasps that we're talking about are so little. They're much smaller, and like you have in your mind like what one of those stinging wasps looks like. What I think might be going on with these pea flowers. So these wasps do not have stingers. They never evolved that defense mechanism, but they can still lay eggs, and they will lay eggs inside of other insects often. And they have these relationships where their offspring live and develop inside other insects, which is gross, but it's beneficial to us because like they're reducing pests. What is beneficial to them, they don't eat bugs, they eat nectar and pollen from flowers. So, but they're little, right? So some of like the most famous flowers that are used in these insectary plantings are like umbelliferous plants or like sweet alyssum. They have like these little teeny tiny flowers because if you think about the structure of a flower, the nectary is like down deep inside the flower and like they have like little tiny tongues. They can't get down in there. The pigeon peas that they're talking about, they have extra floral nectaries. Those nectaries aren't inside the flower. They're on the outside. And they think it co-evolved with ants. Like they think that like those pea flowers have extra floral nectaries because like there was some benefit for them with ants. But it also means that like no matter how big or small you are as a little parasitic wasp, you can take advantage of this nectar, which I thought was really cool. Not all peas do it, but the pigeon pea does. So then maybe
that's interesting. So yeah, when they were describing this whole field of, cowpeas, but they were growing the whole crop for wasps, and they invited people to come over there and look at them. I'm like, heck no, I'm not going near those wasps. I'm kind of scared to go to the cowpeas. But now I know they were teeny tiny and not stingy.
They do not sting. They have no capability of stinging.
Gotcha. Okay, so I don't need to be scared of the cowpea crop anymore.
No.
Okay. And then, so they were growing them to sort of breed these tiny little wasps that then got other parasitic insects under control. Is that right?
They are the parasites.
So why would they be growing parasites?
To control other pests.
Yeah, to control other pests. Mm-hmm. So they were parasites on the cowpeas, I suppose.
No, they were not parasites on the cowpeas. They probably wouldn't impact the cowpeas at all because those cowpeas are producing that nectar free.
So the cowpeas might be benefiting even.
It's possible. It's possible. It's unclear to me, but like in general, if you think about, the evolutionary relationship between insects and flowers, like that nectar probably evolved as a reward for the insects that were spreading the pollen around. In the case of extrafloral nectary, it's possible that like that extrafloral nectary was because of the ants that were protecting the plant. But as far as we know, most of the time ants are protecting aphids from other parasites. So that wouldn't be good for the plant. So like that's why I thought, I don't really understand this story. I need to find out more about it. There's lots of examples of extrafloral nectaries developing, like prunus species, like peaches. They have extrafloral nectaries. And I wonder, there was some thought that like they evolved because of nectar robbing. So you have a flower and like the nectar is at the bottom, like rather than like have this, like you just bite the side of it, right? So you go in and like bite the side of it and all the nectar would come out. So like you've got nectar, but you haven't done the ecosystem service of spreading the pollen around. Like you didn't go in the pollen end to get the nectar. You came around and you bit in the side of it. So I wonder if the extrafloral nectaries are just like growing enough for the thieves, right?
So then I wonder how they spread the pollen.
Other animals do it. But it's probably a lot worse to have a hole cut in the side of your flower than, I don't know. Like this is like evolution works in crazy, misunderstandable ways. Like we don't really know why.
I know. There's probably so many other things happening that we don't know, but science will find out someday, maybe.
It is. Well, the other thing that's really confusing is that, like, the way that we understand using these insectary plantings on the farm is really unclear. Like, we know that if you have beneficial predators on your farm, so like the wasps and lady beetles and stuff like that control your pests, these insectary plantings help them, right? So like they give them a little bit of extra food, like they're more fecund, they have more offspring, they're more resilient. But you can't, it's not like they attract stuff that wasn't there. So a lot of the times like there's like a misunderstanding of what insectary plants can and cannot do. In general, we feel like the more biodiversity you have on a farm, the more likelihood that you're going to have the right predators and parasitoids to like balance everything out. But that's not necessarily the case. So like a lot of the times people will have like a really specific pest in mind that they want to control, and they'll want to bring in biodiversity hoping to enhance their natural enemies. And they're always kind of left disappointed, right? Like they didn't get their main goal achieved. Where we see a lot of success is where there's like a big monoculture. So like maybe in Montana where there's just like a lot of hay, and there's not a lot of, or like maybe like there's like a lot of the same thing. Like maybe they're trying to incorporate more of these legumes, not only to build the soil, but to like have more biodiversity. This is definitely the case in crops like lettuce in California. Like if you have a lettuce field the size of Darby, and it's just lettuce, and like you're in the middle of the desert and there's nothing else, like any amount of flowering crop that you incorporate in that is going to improve biodiversity, which is going to improve biocontrol. You have to use less pesticides for the aphids that develop. It's usually like a really specific pest problem. So it's unclear.
Yeah, it seems like it's a twofold thing, I guess. It's a leguminous crop. It's going to fix nitrogen for the next crop next year, or whatever that may be. And you're also providing habitat for these beneficial insects.
Yeah, it's not just the extra food. It's like a place to hang out, especially if you're a place where they're spraying the shit out of everything. Like to have an extra place where bugs can hang out that also has like this free sugar just like hanging out. Like that's so cool, especially if you're little.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny though, because like the whole idea of like companion planting for biocontrol or for beneficial insects or something like that has always been so peripheral, but like it keeps on coming up over and over and over and over again for me. I've always been like, oh, that's not really that serious, but there's all these other benefits. So like I just did an interview with somebody who, she just finished her PhD at University of Maryland. She's a vegetable specialist now, and she worked with living mulch. You're familiar with all the plants that are in cover crops, like you have grasses, but then you have like the leguminous stuff that's mixed in there for like soil building. She has this system where some of that is kept alive in order to provide resources for insects.
I am Veronica Yurchak. I am an extension specialist for commercial vegetable production with University of Maryland Extension, and a lot of my work focuses on trying to improve pest control in vegetables and create in kind of a more sustainable and economically friendly way. So I do a lot of IPM, which involves a lot of companion planting.
Okay, so how do you define a companion plant?
So a companion plant is essentially any crop or non-crop plant other than the cash crop that you're trying to grow that you plant in close proximity to your cash crop. So that might be interplanting within the same field or a border planting around the field. It could be hedgerow plantings if they're close enough, but any kind of alternative planting within close proximity to the main crop is considered a companion plant.
And like, I know that your background was in a really specific kind of companion planting.
Yes, so my PhD research was specifically looking at living mulches, which is when you place the companion plant between your crop rows. And it's typically a non-crop plant, so it's not the idea of alternating plantings of, say, two different vegetables. It's, for my research, I was looking at sweet corn with strips of red clover growing between the rows of sweet corn, with the idea that increasing the overall diversity would provide a number of different benefits to the cropping system. Part of my research was looking at weed suppression, because you can get some non-insect focused benefits to companion planting as well. And then the other part of my research was looking at how does having this flowering plant between the crop rows affect the insect natural enemy community? What kind of pollinators are we supporting? And is that different than the bees that you might just find feeding on sweet corn pollen? And then does that potentially greater abundance of natural enemies have any effect on the pest pressure in the sweet corn?
So that living mulch is kind of similar in preparation to like a cover crop that's killed and in a no-till situation. Like, do people use similar practices, but in this case they are just not killing the part that's in between the rows?
Right. So a living mulch is essentially a cover crop that you keep alive throughout the growing season. You can sort of establish that system different ways. Some people might plant their whole field into a cover crop and then just strip till out where they're going to put their primary crop that they're growing and then leave that cover crop between the rows. For my research, we kind of did the opposite and planted the red clover only in the strips where we were going to want it growing, and then came in and planted the sweet corn after, kind of in those bare areas between the living mulch. So cutting out tillage was sort of one of the goals behind the study design. So the broader study looked at, I had red clover between strips of sweet corn, but then I also had a system where we planted the strips of red clover, and then in those areas where the sweet corn would grow, we either planted strips of tillage radish or strips of rye. And so the idea was, then we came back in the spring, the tillage radish died, so we just had bare ground without having to till. And then in the rye, we rolled it so we would have that surface mulch.
Oh, cool.
And kind of looked at how that affected both insects, ground predators, and weed suppression.
Okay. So what did you find?
It worked very well for weed suppression. We also compared this to a bare ground and just a full area of terminated cover crop residue. As far as the insects, it was a little bit more complicated because these were sort of smaller plot trials. We didn't see as many differences as I would have liked from the bare ground system in terms of ground predators and what we really expected that to influence. But we also had, plot borders that were just natural vegetation. And so it didn't take much for those ground predators to just move into our relatively small plots.
That is the nature of small plot trials.
Whoa. I
Right.
like it. Yeah. We've used clover before, but probably in the wrong context because we just always mix cover crops, first of all. We didn't have like a row of this
Yeah.
and then a row of red clover. But yeah, the red clover definitely took over some spots that we had a hard time killing it except for plastic is all we could use.
Exactly. Like that's like the issue that most people have, and that's why I'm always like, man, like for a lot of people who are like not super sold on this idea as being a useful tool for them, if they could use a little bit of glyphosate, if they could use a little bit of Roundup, it would be much more accessible to other people. But the people who do the research in this area, like they don't want to touch herbicide with a 10-foot pole for obvious reasons. So this was very clever to me because most people who are finding success with no-till approaches are doing partial, like they're doing strip tillage. And they have the equipment to go in and like do like a little divot in their cover crop and then plant normally. They don't have to buy anything that's like any kind of specialized equipment. Like you might have seen specialized equipment that like pulls it apart and like plants a potato seed piece in there for you. Like that's kind of, I think like that's expensive. Like you have to be like in the business of doing no-till to buy that equipment. But this tillage radish, I thought that was a really good idea that you wouldn't have to.
Yeah, I could do that with what we have. We just use a push seeder for so much stuff. And yeah, I like that idea.